Not every Batman villain wants to take over the world, some just want to rule a prison block. Killer Croc has always been a bit of an odd one. Part gangster, part monster, and dependent on the decade, maybe a misunderstood soul who just wants to be treated with respect. And I think that one of the strongest versions of Killer Croc appeared in Beware the Batman, one of the most overlooked pieces of Batman media in recent decades. But before I get to that, let's talk about who Killer Croc is, and how he has been adapted across the various cartoons that predated Beware the Batman. Killer Croc first appeared in Detective Comics number 523, published in 1983. Killer Croc's introductory story took place over the course of 4 months. Croc was introduced as a mysterious character in a big green coat, almost as a side note in an issue about Solomon Grundy. Croc is a mob enforcer, but quickly takes over following the downfall of Rupert Thorne and the assassination of the Squid, declaring himself the new king of crime. When Batman first learned of Croc, he asked Commissioner Gordon if he had any intel on him, and Jim tells him that Waylon Jones was born with a skin condition that left him with tough, scaly skin that resembled a reptile. After his mother died and his father abandoned him, he had been raised by a negligent alcoholic aunt. Gordon notes that as he grew up in the South, which wasn't exactly known for its tolerance at the time, he was bullied and abused relentlessly until one day he snapped and fought back. The justice system showed him no mercy and sent him to prison. While in prison, he earned the moniker Killer Croc after murdering a fellow inmate that mocked his appearance. Upon his eventual release from prison, Croc joined the circus, wrestling alligators, and turned to petty crime, working his way up the East Coast crime families. He was also notable for being the person that murdered the parents of the new Robin, Jason Todd. The original Jason Todd was practically a carbon copy of Dick Grayson, just with red hair. He was part of a family of trapeze artists, although in this case his parents were fed to Croc's pet crocodiles after they snooped around his hideout. After this story, Croc wasn't really used very much, perhaps due to the shake-up in creative teams in the wake of Crisis on Infinite Earths. But when he was used, he was never quite the same calculating foe. Instead, the writers focused on his size, strength, and brutality. His most notable role in the 1990s was as a means to demonstrate the new villain Bane's toughness after Bane broke his arms in their first conflict. Croc was sometimes portrayed as a more sympathetic figure with an affinity for the lost or the destitute. Sometimes he was a misunderstood figure that lashed out at society because it refused to understand him. Other times, he was a hulking beast. Now, before getting to the version of Killer Croc from Beware the Batman, I think it is important to have a quick rundown of his other animated appearances. Killer Croc made his first on-screen appearance in Batman the Animated Series during the episode Vendetta. Here he kidnaps 2 criminals who had testified against him and frames Harvey Bullock for the crime. In his initial appearance, he is devious, cunning, and strategic. While his origins aren't ever divulged, Batman notes that he was born with a skin condition and that he had previously been a pro wrestler before becoming a hitman. And Detective Bullock was the one that caught him. Croc is arguably most well known for his infamous "I threw a rock at him" scene from Almost Got Him, a scene that seems to set him up as a clueless buffoon. However, the thing that people forget is that this wasn't really Croc, it was Batman impersonating him. And I think that Croc was resentful of Batman for harming his reputation. By the time of the new Batman adventures, Croc had undergone a redesign that made him more reptilian looking, changing his grey scaly skin for green skin, and he most notably got into a relationship with Baby Doll. His betrayal of her almost led to the destruction of Gotham City. I really like their original take on Killer Croc, particularly in the episode Sideshow, where Croc escapes from custody and hides out in the wilderness with a group of former circus performers. But with the best will in the world, he wasn't one of the series' A-tier villains. In 2004's The Batman, Croc was introduced in the 2nd season, and he was reimagined as a more monstrous criminal mastermind. He was huge, impossibly strong, and had a literal tail. His origins were shrouded in mystery. Was he a military experiment, a genetic freak, or the victim of a curse? The show offered all of these as potential origins but never really settled on one. Although there was an issue of The Batman Strikes, the official The Batman tie-in comic, that gave a slightly more definitive answer on his origins, but more on that when I eventually get around to talking about that version of Croc. While their Croc was pretty bestial, he was also an intelligent criminal gang leader. In his debut episode Swamped, he flooded Gotham to allow him to pick the city's banks clean. But like many B-list Batman villains in the show, after a strong first outing, he faded into the background and was only seen in ensemble stories like Rumors, Team Penguin, and The End of Batman. 2011's Batman the Brave and the Bold also had their own version of Killer Croc, but he wasn't all that much to write home about. He made a very brief appearance in the episode Night of the Batmen, when 4 heroes, Plastic Man, Aquaman, Captain Marvel, and Green Arrow, had to fill in for Batman one night. Captain Marvel faced off with Killer Croc, Bane, Solomon Grundy, and Blockbuster, who were trying to steal a gold statue. Croc was also seen in the Brave and the Bold and Scooby-Doo crossover movie, for what that's worth. Now all that brings me to the version of the character seen in Beware the Batman. There, Killer Croc debuted in the episode Animal in the second half of the season. Batman meets Croc after he willingly allowed himself to get arrested so that he could get into Blackgate Prison and ensure that the key, a Z-list villain with the ability to pick any lock, didn't fall into the wrong hands after he had augmented himself with the ability to hack any computer. Once the key entered Blackgate, he became Croc's property, and Croc was going to use him as he saw fit. You see, Croc was essentially the king of Blackgate Prison, a role he had earned after fighting his way to the top. The inmates of Blackgate respected strength, and there was none stronger than Croc, whose thick, leathery skin allowed him to take a beating. Tobias Whale, who ruled Gotham's crime scene on the outside, notes that even he is just a VIP in Blackgate, and he must bow to Croc. When Croc was first sent to Blackgate, he was a nobody, but he fought his way to the top. As such, he grew to quite like his cell. He essentially had a kingdom of his own with hundreds of people at his beck and call. One thing I really like about this version of Croc is how he carves little figures out of wood using his nails. It's actually quite menacing, particularly when he carves one of Batman and then snaps his head off. So really, Croc had no reason to want to leave until Batman came along and upended it all. In order to regain the key, Batman challenged Croc to a fight. If Batman won, he'd get the key. And if Batman lost, he'd give up his life, helping to cement Croc's reputation even further. To facilitate the fight, Croc ordered a riot, and Harvey Dent's hubris delayed a response from the authorities. He had hoped that the criminals would take themselves out along with Batman. But Batman didn't just face Croc, he fought Matatoa, a very obscure early 2000s Batman villain, one ripe for adaptation in this series. Here he's a Maori warrior that believed himself to be immortal so long as he ate the hearts of his enemies. While he wasn't too hard to beat, Croc was more challenging. His unique anatomy made him impervious to most blows, but Batman noticed that he had some fleshy weak spots, and he took advantage. One of the running themes in the second half of the show was how Batman felt himself slipping away from his Bruce Wayne identity, and how isolated he felt after Alfred had left. And this episode shows us Batman as he falls into that metaphorical dark pit. Once he uncovered Croc's weakness, he took full advantage of it and beat him senseless, almost to the point of death. He only stopped because Katana had broken into the prison to rescue him, and she kind of snapped him out of it. And the really interesting thing here is that once he was defeated, Croc just upped and left Blackgate. He was no longer the king. He had been defeated, so there was no point in him being there. He just got up and exited through the sewers and vowed revenge on Batman. His next appearance in the episode Choices showed his cunning side. He lured Batman and Katana into the subway where he had set a trap. The pair were caught in quick-setting cement up to the elbows, right in the path of the oncoming trains. An excellent trap that they couldn't escape from on their own, sure. But Croc had no idea that they had support from Alfred, armed with a pickaxe, and Barbara Gordon, who hacked the subway system to reroute the trains. Croc, rather exasperatedly, wonders just how many people Batman has on his payroll as he beats up Alfred and terrorizes Barbara. Croc is such a strong foe that the only way Batman and Katana could defeat him was by pushing him into the path of one of the trains, sending him flying headfirst into a wall. Croc had the distinction of being one of the few legitimately superpowered villains in Beware the Batman, which is pretty interesting given how the show focused on more obscure and down-to-earth villains from Batman's rogues gallery. Yeah, sure, Ra's al Ghul had the Soul Eater sword, but Anarchy, Professor Pig and Magpie were just people in costumes. I have to wonder if he was included as a concession to critics that felt that the show was too boring without the brightly coloured, more famous villains. Either way, I really like the way he was written in the show, particularly in Animal. He has the calm confidence of someone that knows they could win almost any fight. And when he lost his fight with Batman, he came back for revenge, not to reclaim his crown as King of Blackgate, but more for his own satisfaction. Regardless of the version, Killer Croc's story has never been about global schemes. He isn't trying to prove he's smarter than Batman or that Gotham deserves to be destroyed. He is a survivor, a person forged in pain, rejection and violence, pushed to the margins of society and left to fend for himself. Whether he's a tragic outcast or a hulking menace depends on who's writing the story. But one thing remains constant. Croc lives in the cracks of the world, the sewers, prisons, the dark places people forget, and he thrives there. In Beware the Batman, Croc is more than just muscle. He's patient, tactical and menacing. He doesn't need a secret lair or a flamboyant gimmick. He controls Blackgate with his fists and his reputation. And in a show that prides itself on down-to-earth villains, Croc stands out by being someone more primal. He's not just strong, he's comfortable in his own skin, in every sense. He carved out a space for himself in a system that chewed him up, climbed to the top of it, and made it his home. For once, he wasn't on the outside, he was king. But that's what makes his downfall so informative. Batman didn't just defeat Croc physically, he shattered the illusion Croc had built around himself. When you define your worth by strength alone, what's left when someone stronger comes along? Croc didn't stay to lick his wounds or plot his return to power. No, he quietly left. His kingdom gone, his crown meaningless. All that was left was the personal grudge, and that more than anything speaks to the tragedy of Killer Croc. He's not a villain obsessed with domination or legacy, he's a man and a monster who just wanted to matter, and when that was taken away, he wasn't angry at the world, just the one man who reminded him he'd never truly belong. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Friday with a video to coincide with the new Superman movie, all about how Superman the Animated Series is the definitive version of Superman so far. And then I'll be back next Monday to revisit my latest The Batman Villain Poll to talk about arguably the biggest loser in Gotham City, Killer Moth. Hope to see you then.